All right. Thank you for joining another. This is a back-to-back episode. We had a deal spotlight yesterday. Heather, this is, we've been doing this show for about a year now, and we introduced these deal spotlights where all of our new projects, we have the broker that's working on those deals come live and talk about their projects and their listings and their deals that they're working on. And it's been just really cool collaborative approach to really engaging with an audience live about a project, and it makes us become prepared. And so we had one yesterday on a flex industrial project that we're working on, and so we have back-to-back episodes. But I've been itching and excited to have you on the show here. And this is the 27th episode of the Kansas City Commercial Real Estate Market Pulse, and we stream live here on YouTube as well as on LinkedIn. It's sponsored by our brokerage, Midwest Commercial Real Estate Advisors. I'm your host, Logan Freeman, and it seems like we're coming to you live every week now. It was kind of bi-weekly, but I don't know. We're going to get into market momentum and talking about that today, but we are busier than ever. If you need any support in regards to commercial real estate, brokerage, development, any insights or market analysis, here's our team. Again, that's me. I'm Logan Freeman, but our team is spearheaded by the one, the only Katie Cobb Sullivan. Man, I couldn't do anything without that wonderful woman. And we have another wonderful woman here on the show in commercial real estate here today. But Mike has got the multifamily covered. Nathan and I work on a lot of flex industrial projects as well as office. Chad is just a medical office expert. I'll be with Chad later this afternoon, which I'm very excited about. And Nick is doing very, very cool projects in regards to data centers and a lot of land development as well here. So if anything that I just mentioned, or if you're working on a 1031 exchange, you can reach out to our team and we can help support you. We've been doing it for 9 years here in the Kansas City market. But our aim with this show is very simple. We're trying to deliver valuable, up-to-date information on the Kansas City commercial real estate market. And so we are going to bring you our current listings. We're going to try to bring you any market trends. Yesterday was an absolute masterclass in regards to what is demand, where is the demand coming from for these flexible industrial properties, and why are businesses leasing these things up at a rapid rate. And additionally, we're going to have experts like Heather join us on a regular basis. So that's the show. That's what we do. I am so excited to interview and have Heather Ewing on the show today. She is the founder and CEO of Abstract Commercial Real Estate and brings over 40 years of Madison area insights to retail and restaurant brokerage. She's a thought leader. I mean, we would have a whole show just going through your bio here. So I'm not going to steal that show. I'm going to let you talk us through that. But just know that Heather is an expert in triple net leases, in sales and investment deals all across Wisconsin. She also serves as the 2024 president of both the CCIM Wisconsin Chapter and Commercial Brokers Group Board, and she's a sought-after national speaker. So, wow, she's here on our show here today, which is so incredible. So, Heather, first and foremost, thank you for being here and sharing some time with us and with our audience today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Logan, and thank you so much for having me today. I've really been enjoying following you through LinkedIn, and it's a really lively topic, right? Commercial real estate right now throughout our regions in the nation. There's a lot happening and a lot for us to talk about.
Absolutely, there is. And on that note, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, please do respond in the chats on YouTube or on LinkedIn. We are monitoring those live, and we love to have listener questions come in. Yesterday, I think we had over 27 questions asked and answered live here. So here's your chance to ask Heather a question live today. So we'll be monitoring that, and Katie and the team will be able to get those questions over to me. All right. Let's get started because I am super stoked. And this is one of my favorite kind of concepts and topics is asking people kind of how they got started in commercial real estate. And you once said that people take one of two paths into commercial real estate. they either know exactly where they're going or they take the winding road. And I believe that yours was definitely the latter. But can you please just share how you found your way into commercial real estate? What drew you there and what kind of kept you there?
Certainly. So you're exactly right, Logan. It was the winding road. And I think like many people, I took the path of what I thought I should do in life. And it was a life-altering car accident that really snapped me into a new reality where I started asking bigger questions of who am I? What is my purpose? What is life about? How do we serve? And just really having those big questions in my early 20s. And I ended up spending 11 years in operations management, so overseas buys, toolings, negotiations, electronics, all the different facets. And I found myself just feeling dead inside.
Mm.
And I also realized that we have a choice in life. And I thought it's much easier to make that choice when you're younger. I think
Yeah.
it's always possible, but I thought, let's start looking into it now. So I did pursue various entrepreneurial pursuits of the arts, which I've always loved, fitness, training, all of those different things. And a guy I was dating was like, oh, you have to meet my friend. He's a commercial real estate broker. So that's how I got into it, talking with different brokerage firms. And one said retail and restaurants. And I thought, oh, isn't that beautiful? I've always
Yeah.
loved shopping. I've always loved eating. I can do this. So I started without a book. I was self-funded. And I think it's a premise that's lived throughout my entire life is being very resourceful. And also when I decide on something, I give it 200%.
Mm.
There's always going to be obstacles, and it's asking powerful questions and also just really putting the time in. And I knew that it would bring me to where I wanted to be. And so that's how I really transitioned from 2 business degrees in operations to commercial real estate. And that journey all began in 2010.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'll tell you this: my wife and I definitely have the eating and shopping component taken care of. Mostly for me on the eating side.
Right.
She's a great cook and loves food herself, but she takes care of the shopping for both of us. Sweetie, I love you. If you are listening, which I know you're not, so you'll never hear this, but I just want to put that as an asterisk there. That's a great way to kind of put this 200%, right? I mean, if anybody's been following me for any period of time, I am sort of known as that guy that never stops and just stays very consistent on just about everything that is meaningful to me. But I've never really heard somebody say they give 200%. I always say 100%. So it seems like today I need to level it up. But that's really cool. So I mean, what do you think 200% is compared to somebody that's just maybe giving 100%? Is it being more proactive and thinking about how to mitigate risks, not just in real estate, but just in life in general? But what's 200% mean to you? Because that is just a curiosity little nugget that is stood out for me.
Sure. I see it as expanding out. So it's all with the vision. And I think that correlates to my accident in the early years of really taking a step back. And how do you truly transform your life? And it is the words, the thoughts, the actions, and all of that. And for me, what I identified at an earlier age was how I had held myself back.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we receive those little nuggets, right? As we continue along the path of, wow, my mindset here, it was upgraded compared to a few years ago, but wow, I'm making even bigger advances in the next 5, 10. So I think it's really integrating your vision, mind, body, spirit down to the cellular level of, am I fully in this? And how do I need to evolve professionally, personally, spiritually, and otherwise to just really give it all and not only transform my life, but every person I touch, every client, the community. How do I create those ripples that I'm meant for?
That is so well said. And I I can hear the wisdom as you're speaking. I am an avid reader. I'm an avid listener to folks like Dr. Joe Dispenza. Napoleon Hill was very, very instrumental in my life, still is. And Dr. John, well, just John Mitchell. I don't think he's a doctor, but John Mitchell kind of wrote this book called The Missing Secret, which is the other half of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which I think is fascinating. But I've been on this journey for the last 6 or 7 months about thinking about, well, if we have 60 or 70,000 thoughts per day, and 90% of them are from the past, then you're waking up and you're kind of operating out of a survival mode. But how to flip that from survival to more of this creation and abundance mindset, right? And he's kind of come up with this methodology that's about 12 minutes, and I just listen to it every single morning. It's something that I've written utilizing his methodology, but it's been very eye-opening, which I think is a really great segue kind of into what I wanted to talk with you about next, which is kind of your first exposure, which came from your work in retail and restaurants in downtown Madison. But you said commercial real estate is one of the greatest self-growth tools. And one of my mentors, I've never met him, never talked to him, but I call him mentor. His name is Ed Milet. Many of you probably follow and
Love him
understand
too.
what I'm talking about. But Ed Milet talks about entrepreneurship and business ownership being one of the greatest self-mastery and self-growth tools, with the potentially, the highest price tag, both beneficial and tough. But I love that you said this. What did you mean by that when you said commercial real estate is one of the greatest self-growth tools? Because that really stood out to me.
Right. Thank you. When I look back, so I got into real estate in 2010, commercial in 2014. I think of who I was, how I thought, how I processed things, how I handled if a deal fell through, some of the different challenges in various deals. They can go months, years, that type of thing. And I think with commercial real estate, because the stakes are so high, that it can be very painful when you do make mistakes. And of course, they're there to set you up and that you can grow from, but you don't forget them because they cost you not only personally, but also financially.
Yeah.
And so with that, you learn rapidly, and you also don't repeat mistakes, or at least I hope not.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it is an amazing self-growth tool. And I think when you look across the world, right, amongst various investors, brokers, anything, it's really up-leveling how you see your mindset, your health, all these different things, which then funnel into our commercial real estate and really allow us to grow and to succeed. So when I look at it from that big framework, it's the most amazing self-growth development tool I've experienced. And I think many others would agree.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I mean, my post today on LinkedIn was all about winning or learning. And if you do that, then there is no failure. And I stole that from, I'm sure, somebody else that I listened to at some point. But I talked about a project that, was a big deal. We had it under contract, and one thing happened, and, the deal was gone the next day. And I mean, 4, 5, 6 months worth of work is now, just rapidly vanished. And it's very difficult. And that it really takes, I think, not just in commercial real estate, but if you're in that type of industry and or production capacity, the power of a positive mindset, because it's easy to get down and it's easy to get negative. And how do you elevate that thinking on a regular basis? And maybe if I get people reaching out to me, I'm sure you do as well, on LinkedIn, and we'll get to some of the questions that I've already had sent to me here at the end. But I think this is a good component here is, if you're talking with somebody that might be newer in their career and they're kind of going through some of those challenging times and or having some hard times in regards to getting their business up and going, how do you stay positive when everything around you seemingly is negative?
Right. Again, it's taking note of the bigger picture. And it's easy to get stuck into the minutia, different emotions. And I think also as brokers, investors, that we hold the energy for the deal. So you're going to see different personalities. Some might work well together. Others are going to clash. And it's really, again, eye on the prize, taking that step back and hearing people, but also a lot of it is reading between the lines. What are they saying verbally? What are they saying non-verbally? And I also think you really have to implement a creative strategy for negotiations, because with the market, with the ebbs and flows, it's not cookie cutter. You're not just doing deals. They're not closing in a few months. Deal time is further out. Construction times are further out. Dollars are all increasing. And something that I really like to implement too, Logan, is the physical component.
Yes.
And for me, that is just as integral as everything else, because I think whatever we're putting into our mind, body, spirit is going to come out when we are in relationships, in our careers. And if you are sleeping well, if you have your morning, evening rituals, if you have God's spirit, whatever you believe in, and you're also bringing that consistency and the physicality, when you overcome those little things that felt hard, or when you wanted to quit on a long marathon training run and all these different things, it sets you up for success.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, I already overcame that early in the day. I started it with the right mindset. And now it's just taking the next step, the next step, and the next.
Go back, rewind that, listen to that 100 times. We hold the energy for the deal. It is up on the screen. We hold the energy for the deal. Prime example of this, I was running the other day. I've ran a marathon, okay, but I'm an ex-offensive lineman, and so I have done a marathon, a full marathon and many half marathons, but I was out on a run, and I was going to meet some guys early in the morning. About 0.7 miles into my run, I roll my ankle, and this is about a 7.5 mile run. And I had this little moment where it was like, okay, yes, I just rolled my ankle. It's not too bad. I'm still running on it. It's okay. It's sore, but I could just walk back home and text the guys and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it today. But something inside of me said, you know what? I think you can push through. You're not physically going to be at any risk. My ankle is fine today, and that was just on Saturday. And it was just that little win for the day. And whenever something, I have 3 children, 6 and under, when they throw a tantrum or they're being difficult, like I've already conquered something hard. And there was a reason, that I was getting in ice baths every single morning for about a year. And it wasn't necessarily for the physical benefit. It was, can I force myself to go downstairs or outside in the wintertime in a horse trough and break up that ice with a hammer and force myself to get into it for 4 or 5 minutes, whatever I was doing, and
exactly.
And that's just it. When something comes later in the day, professionally, personally, that is outside of your control, you've kind of got this muscle that's been created to say, I can do hard things. And that is one thing I've tried to implement in my children is, we do not say can't. Freemans don't say can't. And I have some funny stories about that. Little 3-year-old girl at daycare goes up to her teacher and somebody says, can't, or they said, hey, you can't do that. And she looked at him and said, Freemans don't say can't,
I love that you've instilled that within her.
Yeah, shout out to Isabella Mae Freeman, my oldest daughter. She's an absolute godsend for me. But just thinking about that methodology and that framework is really important. And I always tell people, like, there's a reason I'm a little bit of a fanatic about my health, is because, Oprah, when I read her book early on in my career, she said, you can't give what you don't have. And if you don't have energy, and if you don't have positivity, if you don't have preparedness, how are you going to give that if you don't have that? Right. And so I think that's really, really important. But maybe just talk to us a little bit about some of the mindset shifts that you had to make early in your career to really kind of gain traction, right? I mean, I think that's a really big takeaway, and we've talked a little bit about that. But is there anything else that can kind of come to mind that you had to kind of say, hey, this is something I've got to change in regards to my mindset early on in your career?
Definitely. Something I want to tag into before I go into that was when you were sharing about your run, the 7.5 mile, and tweaking your ankle. I wanted to really highlight the discernment you used. And that is something that is integral to carrying any deal, right? You discerned, is this physically going to put me in a very bad spot, or is it something I can work through with discomfort? That same discernment, Logan, is used throughout deals. How much can I push in negotiation or bring it down another level to bring it to a conclusion, right? That will allow both parties to win. So discernment is huge.
Mm.
Another part of that is, when I look back to some of the different challenges and growth that I've experienced over the years, some of it was really understanding my value. And we all come at it at different points, at different ages. And I think it can come up at some times where you feel very confident and other times where you don't, when you are exploring new areas and there's a lot of new material and you're working with mentors, coaches, and you're really pushing those limits. So for me, it was understanding the value. And I had that epiphany of, I know all the basics and they need all the basics to be able to know what they're going to pay for it. So that just unlocked something within me of, you already have the key. Now just charge for the key in another way, right? So it's up leveling the opportunity to grow, to gain, and really create that desired life. I think also it was speaking on larger platforms.
Yes.
It was also mentoring people. And that is something that is near and dear to my heart. And so at the UW-Madison here in downtown Wisconsin, we have one of the #1 real estate schools of the nation. And I mentor a group of girls on a quarterly basis. It's not only about asset classes and interviews and paths. We also talk branding, which is essential. Everyone is a brand, and many don't realize that, many do. So making sure of that. Also integrating fitness. That's how you're going to perform at a higher level. And also, like you said too, doing the hard things sets you up to succeed. And the more energy you have, the more you can give. And I don't remember who had said it, but when you lose your health, that's your only focus.
That's right.
And that's why I learned at an early age, again, going back, that your body is a temple. And we need to nurture it both mentally, physically, spiritually, all of the different facets, because we're not siloed. We're multifaceted beings. And people are going to have an impression of you before you ever open your mouth. But then what you say will solidify it, as well as your actions.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really being pure of heart with the numbers. And to me, that's a perfect combination. And I think for me, what I also learned was just, I love that you can be yourself in commercial real estate and make good money. There's very few opportunities, I feel like, that to really have the expansive growth that you can in commercial real estate.
Absolutely. Very well said. Well, Andrea's jumping in here saying ice baths, so it looks like she's definitely on the ice bath train. Caleb Brown, thanks for being here. Amen on taking care of ourselves. Caleb is a real estate practitioner here in Kansas City. Absolutely crushing it on the single family home side. Shout out to Caleb. Really appreciate all your engagement and all the posts and work that you do in the Kansas City area. Thank you all for being here. Continue to bring the questions over to us. Let's shift gears just a little bit, because while I love the physicality and all of that around personal and professional growth, I do want to talk a little bit about your approach to commercial real estate. And it's clear to me that you see it as far more strategic than simply putting a sign in the yard. And this has been something that I've been trying to master over the last 7 or 8 months, is this digital real estate space where our market seems to be moving. But let's talk about what you actually do in regards to commercial real estate. And, what is your process for creating the right fit between landlords, developers, and tenants? And I am selfishly very excited to talk about this, because I have been kind of expanding my reach and from just doing investment sales to much more all-encompassing real estate. So let's talk about that for a bit.
Definitely. Again, it's really understanding the market. Something that has served me very well is being very entrenched into downtown Madison as well as Dane County. And with that, it's getting out and talking to people. I drop into various restaurants, various retailers. I go to several events, local industry events, also just like chambers. I'm part of Rotary. I've served on various commercial real estate boards. I'm on this also the Downtown Madison, the Business Improvement District Board. It's really infiltrating an area. And people are going to share a lot more with you when you're face to face. That's how I find out about, oh, yeah, my landlord is not renewing my lease because they might want to tear this down and develop it. You're not going to read that in an article, and you're not going to obtain that information quite frequently unless you are representing the developer. Things of that nature are really important, and I call it my multi-layered approach. It's also still cold calling at different times. It's creating videos. I'll go into different properties I have available. And this started when I opened my firm, April 2020, right? What a great time to open a commercial real estate firm.
Absolutely.
So again, I gave it 200% to lift it off the ground and grow.
Yeah, you had to.
But it's getting creative. And I think people get stuck on problems and concerns. And that can happen in conversations with retailers, with landlords, with developers. So it's helping them onto that next section of having the conversation so you understand their concerns, but it's also guiding the conversation in a way that you're going to be able to best provide value for them to up-level their return, and also, again, creating something that is really giving back to the community. It's also understanding what is your ideal landlord? What's your ideal developer? And so I represent a lot of landlords, developers, and also I say I cherry pick tenants. Mm-hmm. And with that, it's really looking through the lens of both. And it's going to help you with whoever you're representing. But about 40% of the time, I'll work with both sides on the one deal.
Okay.
And it's, again, listening, asking the questions, and reading between the lines. And that's where I'll know certain clients, it's like, oh, they'd be perfect for this developer's property. They're going to love the concept. They're going to appreciate it. They're both going to really rise. Whereas others, it's just like, I don't see the personality. I'll still make the connection, but everyone is different. Mm-hmm. Some don't care who the landlord is, and others are, tell me about the landlord. How did they treat their tenants during COVID? I had predicted that would have lasting ramifications, and it did, especially in a smaller market like Madison.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what I heard you kind of say was you need to know your market, mm-hmm. understand what's going on in that market, and you're not going to find that necessarily just marketed online. You've got to be active. You have to have a presence, be going to the meetings. I speak about this quite often, going to economic development council meetings, going to city council meetings in the municipalities, or just going on and listening to them live. Many of them are live streamed with recordings of the previous events that they have had or meetings that they've held. And that I have gleaned so much information. And by the way, if you are a commercial real estate professional, many of your clients who are working on trying to get projects through are there. So you can go and meet them while they're actually presenting. Now, don't interrupt them in the middle of their presentation. But hey, if you're showing up saying, "Hey, I'm here trying to figure out what's going on. I'm working on this project. I just noticed that you've got a new proposed project. Let's collaborate." Like, that is a really great place to be that. So knowing your market, having an active presence in that market, and understanding what's going on in that market outside of just the headlines that you might be seeing. Did I capture that correctly?
Right. And a couple more things that I'll add is with the marathon training, I run thousands of miles throughout our downtown. I'll also take pictures and I'll send it to different landlords, to developers.
So good.
It also helps me have a finger on the pulse is, gosh, that restaurant has been there a couple of years. They used to be busy. They've been dead. And then too, maybe I'm representing a restaurant. I'm like, I'm going to reach out to the landlord. How is their tenant doing? Is the tenant current on rent? Sometimes the tenant wants out. They're in over their head. They had the dream. Maybe they did well with the initial success, but they're not anymore. So it's also really utilizing that creativity. And something else that I've done is for different developers that I did want to work with. When they have an RFP in for a new development, I reach out. I attend some of those city meetings. I have also spoke on behalf of what bringing the size of retail and restaurants that they want to bring to that development within the community. So I'm speaking on their behalf, not officially, but I'm there and I'm putting in that pre-work, if you want to say.
Yes.
And that's something that a lot of people wouldn't want to take the time for, or they wouldn't want to do the research and the reach out. But those are little ways of, again, it's providing value. Don't ask them, right? They get asked all the time. Provide the value and then show how you can help.
Yeah, man, we're so similar in that light. And many folks that I work with on a regular basis sort of think about working with me like, hey, you've already thought about 3 steps ahead. And it's like, because I know what's going to be a challenge and we're going to bring that up now, never split the
Right.
difference. Chris Voss in that book, if there is a feeling or something that needs to be spoken, get it verbally out there.
Yes.
This is something else, Heather, that has been fascinating with me this year. The assumptions that I make internally versus reality are so far off. And so I've done a couple things to try to combat that, right? Number one is over communicate and communicate again and communicate again. I think Aristotle said, you tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, right? And it's like, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but you sort of have to do that when you're in the negotiation and communication business. But the second thing would be really focusing on making sure that what I'm assuming is what they're assuming, because wow, that has been pretty widely different in regards to some of the deals that I've worked on this year. I do love the fact that you said, being able to get out there, you run thousands of miles in the downtown area. That's just impressive by itself. I'm over here trying to get 15 or 17 miles in a week,
That's
but
great, though. That is great.
so that's incredible. But at the same time, on my runs, I plan them around different properties, different areas, and I go run them. And it's wow. I mean, I do find a lot of opportunities. I'm just like you said, taking pictures in front of buildings. I do the same thing, and I'm emailing them, and they get responses, guys. It gets responses if you are there, or you notice something about the property, or you're there just taking a big smiling selfie like, hey, I'm over here working hard around your property, just think about how hard I'm going to work for you if we're actually working together. So great tips and pointers there. Before we move on to our next kind of component here, I also want to hear about that CCIM aha moment that led to kind of co-founding Abstract Commercial Real Estate, if you're willing to share.
Sure. So it actually goes back to 2019 of when I ran the New York Marathon. Inside of me, I had already raced 25 half marathons, and in my age group, I came in the top 3 in 50% of those.
Wow.
And I knew I got too comfortable. So it was one of those, like, it's time to grow, Heather.
Yeah.
So I had ran my initial in, 17 years prior, hated it. 2019, I ran New York, and it just really opened up a lot. And that's also when I started then my CCIM designation, because I knew that this was going to be something that was really pivotal to my life, and it has been. And it was obtaining my CCIM PIN in August of 2020, opening the business that was like the magic 3 that all came together. And I think it's knowing, here's where I'm at, and here's where I want to be, taking the step back, and how do I get there? And I like to feel into it, right? Of what does it feel like when you've obtained your CCIM PIN? What does it feel like when you've opened your brokerage firm? How are you going to serve differently? How are you going to help people in a different manner? And feeling into those different aspects.
Yeah.
And I think that guides you in your decision making. But it has just opened my world to an amazing group of people, additional learning, insights, access to different resources, and of course, giving back. And I think that's one of the things I love about growth is we all love learning. We see where we were, where we're going, and you want to give back, because we've all been that person at some point in life that was just struggling. And if you just had that next step, that helping hand, it makes all the difference.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, hey, I got to show this again. Caleb is saying, writing that idea down for selfies in front of potential properties and listings. That's brilliant. It
Yes.
absolutely is. It's fascinating, and you'll probably find some properties that you will not find sitting in front of your computer screen. It's not really driving for dollars. It's more running for dollars, so to speak.
Right.
And you can be healthy while you're doing it. So there you go. If you don't take anything away from this today, take that away, because
Yeah.
combining that physicality with your business is really cool. Hey,
Here's another one
yeah.
on that too, Logan, is from the videos, the properties, right? Because you know what aspects people want and need.
Mhm.
I was on a plane coming back from ICSC, coming back from Vegas, the big retail
Yeah.
annual event. I was waiting for the restroom. Someone heard my voice. Heather. We had never met. So I ended up representing a large regional retailer because of that.
That's
Like, I've
incredible.
been following you on LinkedIn for the past year plus. I love your content. You really know the area. You know what you're doing. So that also, taking those selfies with the properties, talking about the properties, the area, providing value, it does deliver for business.
Absolutely does. That's so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I meet some folks, and this is their first impression. You're a lot larger than I thought you were. I don't know why that's always their first impression. Man, you're a lot bigger than I thought. But number two is, I feel like I know you. You know, I've been
Mhm.
following, listening, and that's kind of goes back to that brand, which I think is a great segue here. Abstract has such a unique brand, art forward, strategic, client focus. You know, where did that vision come from?
Definitely. I have always loved the arts, and I oil painted in high school many years ago. And after my car accident, I did have an art business where I would commission oil paintings for large, high-end residential. It would also be commercial, financial industries, but then also exhibit throughout various hospitals, lenders, parade of homes, things of that nature. So I carried it forward with the creative approach. This is actually one of my pieces behind me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's 6 feet by 4 feet. But it's one of those, you're telling a story,
Mm.
especially with commercial real estate. And that is very artful. And also with all the social media, all of the graphics, that's really important. And you bring in that art forward approach. And then it also extends into all of the deals of
Mm.
navigating the ups and downs, the challenges between the deal itself, or personalities sometimes too. So it's seen through the creative lens, and that's
Yeah.
just how I've really envisioned life and also commercial real estate. And I think it's something that I really enjoy, and people appreciate a fresh approach.
They absolutely do. And one thing that I kind of, labeled myself as early on in my career was, I'm not a creative guy. I'm not good with arts and all of this thing. And I
Mhm.
realized I was kind of putting a stopper on myself, because there is an art to storytelling. There is an art to communication. And when I really kind of stepped into that, I realized that if you can get to the point where you're telling, and I look for this on every real estate project, is I'm looking for that one thing that's really going to
Right.
stand out and help this deal make sense for somebody else, right? And I don't stop searching until I find it. But when you can tell that story and you can combine that with a strategy, that's when you
Mhm.
can really get to results, because our business is really the one of creating a market for a product. And I've kind of been, formalizing this spotlight strategy for our real estate, thinking about each project as a productized launch instead of just listing it. So this really spoke to me whenever I was reading about this strategy. And I think that unique brand and the art forward, strategic, and client focused approach is exactly where this industry is moving, more from the transactional side to more of this advising side. And look, there's still going to be the transactional folks out there, and that's okay. You know, there's brokerages to
Right.
deal with them, right? And a lot of them are 3 letters and they're big, and that's fine. But we're boutique brokerage owners and
Exactly.
operators, and we do things a little more creatively. And I think that's a great value proposition for folks like us. So thank you for sharing that.
Definitely. And I think that's also why we attract a lot of newer concepts for the area,
Yes.
is that they can relate to that art forward, and it's abstract, right? And I paint abstract, which is how I named my firm Abstract. And I also like that A was at the beginning of the alphabet also for listing. And with that, it's taking their ideas, and that's where it's fun. Sometimes you have input that they actually do implement, not only in design, but also in curation of their vision. And it's really neat to just see that come from a concept, going through the funding, providing them with the architect, the contractor, the signage, any city due diligence, liquor license if required, patio license, all these different things that it's very creative. And I like that a lot of people are understanding how creativity breeds itself in so many different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, well put. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. We've kind of talked on the fitness space quite a bit, but so we're going to kind of move that over. This is one
Yes.
part that I want to highlight for sure. You've built a reputation for carving out your space in what's historically been a male-dominated industry, right? My first real estate mentor in this industry, in commercial real estate, amazing woman, and I owe a lot to her. But how has your presence, you think about your presence impacting the commercial real estate world, and what is your advice for women entering this field? Because we need so many more women in this industry.
Definitely. So I grew up as a tomboy. I was always playing soccer with the boys. I really focus on its value. I don't think of it as male female as
Yeah.
much. And from that, again, it's very much, I see it from the sport vantage point. If you started at the finish line, whoever ends first is the one that had more market knowledge, that was able to better communicate, was able to solve their clients' problems, better resources. So it's really, how can you provide the best experience? And I'll repeat it all the time. It's knowledge, it's alignment, and it's also bringing your best. And that's where self-growth, connecting with other brokers, having mentors, just continually up leveling. And I think it's also important to dress professionally. And I think it's really important to overcome the insecurities of being uncomfortable talking to people, because we are in sales. And so look at someone that's a few years ahead of you and start connecting with them, seeing what tips they have to offer, and do the daily consistent work of up leveling. And to me, that's how I think you'll be well regarded and you'll do well.
Absolutely. Well, love your quote here. We put it up on the screen for everyone. Carve your seat at the table and bring others with you. I always, in Saint Mother Teresa is a big inspiration in my life, but she said, do small things with great love. And she's got so many great quotes, right? But
Yes.
also, you won't really know how much somebody else is not going to know how much you're listening until they feel like you're listening to them, right? And I think that's rings true as well. And I like the fact that you said, hey, it's not a male female thing, it's about who's adding that value. But I will, and that's very humble of you, but I also will say that the women in our industry that I work with on a regular basis, they have up leveled, and they've up leveled in a big way. And I love, and I tell Katie that on my team on a regular basis is like, you got to be around me 99% of the time, because
Right.
yes, it's just a different perspective. It's a different level of service, and frankly, just great communication, and it's so much needed. And man, I just can't wait to hopefully see more and more women enter into our industry and continue to reshape and bring those different values and perspectives to the table, because it's so important. So thank you.
I agree. And one other thing I would add to it too is, I think one of the interesting things is also Sometimes I think it's to our advantage because when you sit down to the negotiation table, I think sometimes if you have two guys, it can be kind of like who's alpha.
Mm,
And I don't feel that you have that in male-female negotiations.
yeah.
I think it can be a little bit more collaborative as a result. So I say that's one of the superpowers.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Let's talk a little bit about the future, and before we get into our last segment, which is going to be our
Yes.
quick takes with Heather. But let's look ahead a little bit. Where do you see the commercial real estate market heading over the next few years? One of my, I would say hobbies is studying real estate cycles. Look, I'm a younger guy. I've been in the industry for 9 years, and we've seen a lot of craziness in the last 9 years. But I wasn't around in the 80s. I wasn't around in 2008 doing real estate, right? And so, well, I wasn't even probably thought of in the 80s, but I wasn't doing real estate in 2008. I was worried about playing football somewhere. But you've got a really great holistic perspective on this front. Where's the commercial real estate market right now? Because we ask that question to all of our guests, and we get a lot of different responses. So love your perspective on at least what you can. I'm not asking you to prognosticate and pull out a crystal ball, but what are you seeing in the industry right now?
I'm seeing a softer side of commercial real estate. I think especially over the past 4 or 5 years that people are also understanding the importance of the emotional elements of it. And I think that's also where you're seeing a much more collaborative approach. You're bringing more retailers, operators into one space, the experiences and the dining. I think it's one of those too of up leveling and of really understanding that anything that is becoming dated, that you will be washed to the side. So it's really gaining speed and momentum for having those solid build outs, for transitioning in them. And I think people are still going to demand more and more convenience and also higher tiers of service with it. And I think there's a strong presence of regional brands as well as the nationals, but it's not always going to be the nationals that are ideal. You'll see it happen in a lot of lifestyle centers as you travel throughout the country, that it's crucial to have some of the strong regional operators because they give it a feeling of home, but yet the opportunity to value add, if you want to say, through the national. So it's condensing of footprints, more strategic build outs, higher dollar amounts being invested, and thinking about people's emotions with color, design, lighting. You'll notice a lot of greenery. That's another big one. And that also applies to the development of these mixed use developments. And I'm helping a developer right now, and it was really neat taking different images of overseas travels of developments and space creation and utilization of green. So it's bringing nature to the inside.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Very good. Well, you heard it here first from the horse's mouth, so to speak, right? The things that might be more important in the near future are the softer side. And I'm seeing the same exact thing on our end as well. People are making more strategic long-term decisions. And I think that's really important for us to be thinking about as real estate practitioners. Okay, Heather, we're wrapping up here. I'm going to get into our quick takes with Heather. Let's talk about real quick, what is your most memorable deal? If you can just pinpoint it on one, but give us an idea of what one of your most memorable deals has been.
Definitely. I would say it was a car wash deal that I negotiated, and it was really challenging because there were several operators that suddenly all wanted to have car washes in the area. And it was due to a developer relationship that I had that they weren't going to sell it. They were only going to land lease. So I got them to both sell it to us for the right dollar amount and secure it.
Nice.
So it's all about relationships and finding through good conversation of what needs to happen for both to thrive.
Wonderful. How about some advice for new brokers entering into the industry?
Surround yourself around experienced brokers in the niche that you're interested in. Only take advice from people that are successful in any area of life for that particular topic. And also get uncomfortable. It's going to be a daily experience, but as you overcome that, really build your tool belt so that you can handle it successfully and give back.
That's great. You catch what you're close to. And
Yes.
that is something that is so true. And many people say that, you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think there's some truth to that for sure.
I
But I
agree.
think that it can be intentionality around catching what you're close to. And, I just push back on the quote a little bit because I say, well, I'm not necessarily surrounding myself with Ed Milet and Joe Dispenza and John Mitchell on a face-to-face basis, but I am on a regular basis listening and hearing and embodying Jocko Willink and David Goggins and all of my favorite folks. But definitely catch what you're close to. Keep yourself around those folks. Okay, fantastic. Your favorite quote or mantra that you live by?
Live fully. And that
Yeah.
stems back to my earlier car accident, that
Yes.
life is a blessing. Our bodies are temples, and you're not meant to exist. You're meant to live fully.
That is so beautiful. I mean, the real estate company, my holding company, is called Live Free, and it's very similar to that.
Yes.
It's want to live free in regards to any type of constraints that the world or yourself is putting on you, and there's a lot of fully embracing the live fully mentality there as well. Okay, last thing. If you could leave listeners with one piece of advice about up-leveling their life and their career, what would it be?
Feel into who you want to be
Mm,
and work at that in a multidimensional level, from your morning, evening routines to who you're spending time with, and also know that you're worth it in every step to
yeah.
overcome those hurdles, and they're there to help you grow and to excel.
There's a reason that you're on the national stages. My goodness, just very well said. Okay, Heather, where can people follow you and Abstract Commercial Real Estate?
Sure. LinkedIn is a great resource. Heather Ewing, CCIM, you'll see the little runner on there. Also, abstractcommercialrealestate.com.
Wonderful. Well, Heather, thank you so much for being here and for sharing so many great insights with us today.
Thank you for having me, Logan.
Absolutely. You can follow myself, find us at mwcreadvisors.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well on a regular basis. This has been another episode of the Kansas City Commercial Real Estate Podcast, special episode. And I will tell you, Heather, just because the little thing up here says zero visibility or the zero thing, my LinkedIn is showing me very different. So I haven't figured that out. If somebody is a StreamYard expert, please do reach out to me because I'm at the very periphery of that. But just know that there was a lot of listeners here today. I know you added a lot of value. You're getting a lot of love. I'm watching it on LinkedIn right now on my phone. So thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing today with us. We'll be back, I'm sure, next week or the week after with another episode of the Kansas City Commercial Real Estate Market Pulse. Go follow Heather. She's a wealth of knowledge. I feel like we're kindred spirits. We have very similar viewpoints, and I'm excited to continue the conversation. So Heather, thanks again for being here.
Logan, thank you so much too. It was a true joy and pleasure.
Thank you all for joining in, and thank you for your comments and your questions. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Bye.